Welcome back to Love and Relationships for the Modern Mystical Life. I'm Juliana Christine, and this is where we get to weave together practical relational advice with soulful, real life experiences so we can find a new way together. So picture this for just a moment. It's 7 women walking through the forest of Smuggler's Cove, all of us carrying woven baskets, flowers in our hair, jars of flowers, and charcuterie. This was the beginning of a dear friend's bachelorette, a weekend away where we celebrated her, where we prayed together, where we practiced gratitude and love, where we played and did skits and played card games and laughed a lot. I was with these women for 3 days, and it was the most connective, playful, joyful, deep, serious, peaceful, and united weekend I have ever spent with 7 women. And we all noticed it and named it, how easily everything flowed together, how we all stayed together as a group. Not once did we split off separately. And we all named it that this was rare. And it wasn't accidental. It was actually something that we created by the conditions that each of us brought into that weekend, by the intention of that weekend. Now, in episode 2, I talked about how relationships are living systems, they're not machines. So, the forest that we walked through to reach the ocean, that's a living system. The ocean itself is a living system. When we sat down on the bedrock outcrop and laid out our cloth for the despacho prayer, and laid out all of our flowers and our offerings and sat in circle, we were creating a living system. When everything is in motion and there is a intentional intention behind why we come together, we create right conditions. And what I've noticed with my clients and with myself is we all want this kind of connection. There's a deep longing inside of us for this level of connection where we can relax into just being ourselves, where we can feel safe and supported and loved no matter what we're feeling and who we are and what's going on. And a lot of us are missing it. We feel that lack. When we don't have it, we will often you might feel sad, might feel resentful, guilty, or shame, belief like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? Why can't I have this feeling that everyone else seems to have? And I'll tell you, um, it's actually quite rare. And so, without knowing that it's rare, we're trying to fix it outside of us, fix the relationship. Why isn't this working? But the thing that we don't realize is that we're kind of coming at creating this level of connection blind. We don't actually have, most of us don't actually have lived reference points for this level of connection. And that's simply because of the way that the world is. Now, if you've had this level of connection, I love that for you so much. And I think that what you might notice if you've had this level of connection or you're starting to look at relationships as these living systems is that your relationships And systems, whether it's in the ocean or in the forest or in the sky or in the garden, respond to conditions, not force. And so you carry conditions that you bring into every relationship that you're in. Curiosity, compassion, honesty, love, playfulness. Those are conditions that you bring into your relationship. Guilt, shame, fear, beliefs that keep you stuck. These are also conditions that you bring into your relationship, and they move with you as you enter into the room with other people. A side note, as I'm speaking this, there's been a little frog outside of my window for the past 2 days, and he just started croaking. So you feed what you bring, right? That's what you're offering into relationships. So when we look at these conditions, right, it allows something to happen, to shift. And it's this really great question my teachers used to always ask is who do you want to be in the middle of this? This being the relationship. Who do you want to be? I know on that weekend, I wanted to be really open hearted. I wanted to bring all of my playfulness because I know the bride and she's very playful. And so I wanted to bring that with me, even though that's kind of a harder place for me to exist. I wanted to bring joy. I wanted to bring ease. I wanted to feel safe to be myself. And I wanted to bring open hearted curiosity about all of the women who were there because I didn't know all of them really well. And so, what allows this level of connection, the conditions that were brought into this weekend with these women, was a shared intention. It was also a shared relational language. So we all kind of speak the same language when it comes to relationships. And that really matters. Words matter. So if you don't understand something, or you can have one word that means one thing to one person, and it might mean something very different to another. And so even if you don't have the shared relational language, it's really important to bring curiosity that if you don't understand something, you can ask. Also, a genuine respect for the differences of everybody there. Curiosity for what makes us all unique and different, because each person is bringing very important perspectives, skills, emotions to the joining. If this didn't actually happen, but when or if someone was upset, we bring curiosity again rather than judgment. We hold the assumption that if someone is having a hard time, that means they need something, not that they're trying to be difficult or there's something wrong with them, which is sustained curiosity with each other. Genuine compassion. Like, this is something we all do very well, is we know that living like, life is crazy. It's a very complex existence that we live in that is colored by so many different emotions and beliefs, and we bring our past into every new interaction, and we have these young parts of us that get scared sometimes. So real compassion that we're all existing in this wild and crazy and beautiful world together. Communication that's real, acceptance of messiness, right? Relationships are messy. You'll hear me say that again and again and again. Relationships are messy. So, can we bring joy into the mess? A permission for everyone to be themselves, that the uniqueness of each individual is so important. And the shared intention at the beginning, that was our walk out to the ocean to do our despacho prayer circle that brought us together to set the container for the weekend. So if we look at this, these are conditions that we all agree upon. If you were watching me right now, I would be like circling. You'd see me using my hands to like talk about this circular motion, right? This is an ecosystem. This is how ecosystems thrive together. When you bring people together, we create an ecosystem. And when you bring all of those conditions to the ecosystem of connection, we all get to thrive. And I'm someone who is historically been very burnt out by being around people too much consistently. And there's a few reasons for that. One is in human design, I'm a projector. So I'm taking in all of this sacral energy. But another is because I would mask myself around people. People pleaser, classic people pleaser. And so that masking takes a tremendous amount of energy. And so if you're masking all the time, eventually you get really burnt out by it. And what was really beautiful about this weekend is, yes, I was exhausted because we did so many things and I didn't sleep very well and there was so much connection, but I didn't feel burnt out, which is a sign that I was not masking. I was being fully present and being myself. So when we suppress connection, the conditions that close down the ecosystem of connection is when we have guilt, shame, or fear running internally and we don't name it. We don't speak to it. When we've held back for so long, that resentment starts to leak out. Resentment is can be icky. When you're over functioning or someone else is over functioning and you're not allowing other people to move in, over functioning is controlling, wanting to control the situations that you feel safe. Disagreements where there's no repair. And that repair can look like laughing about it and creating a joke or a bigger discussion if it's needed. Not being fully present when we agree to be fully present and not being honest with yourself. And this is really important because the only way we can be honest with each other is if we're first honest with ourselves. So, this sort of creating conditions where love can thrive, it takes time. It's if you've tried this, you've tried to be honest, you've tried to show up differently in your relationships and you're like, well, it's not working. I'm going to be straight up honest with you and say that this takes time because you're literally rewiring your nervous system and it's called your default mode network in your brain. And you live in a physical body, and that physical body is dense. And that physical body only wants to keep you alive. So it will do anything to do that, meaning it will go back to its default ways that it created connection for you as a child. You will never hear me say something like you can change your relationships in 30 minutes a day for 2 weeks. Because what we're doing here is you're taking long ingrained patterns, not just your patterns, generational patterns, and you are choosing to create a new experience for yourself and the generations that are going to come after you and the generations that came before you. This is family systems theory. When we do the work in our relationships in the now, we have impact on 7 generations ahead of us and 7 generations behind us. I've done this in my own family system. I've had the privilege of seeing how I changed my relationship as I changed how the conditions that I brought into my relationships. That changed my relationship with my mom. And I got to witness my mom changed the relationship with my Nana, her mom, before she died. So it requires compassion and curiosity for yourself as you're moving through this. And fear is a part of it because the body responds to what is not safe, what it believes is not safe. So the body doesn't know the difference between a real threat, meaning like I'm not safe, I might die, and a perceived threat, meaning I'm thinking about this terrible thing that could happen and it's having a reaction in my nervous system that is wired that way due to when I was a child and something might happen, right? So you have to walk through fear to start changing these patterns. One of the things that we did in the despacho was so beautiful. The first round was offering prayers for the circle, for the weekend, gratitude, anything that came. But the second round was that each woman in turn confessed to her own fears that were live for her in the moment. And this is the part that gets really scary for people because it's like those are the places that we hide, that we wear all of our masks around. But when we can speak to the truth of what's really coloring how we show up in relationship, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful how we did around. Seven of us women went around and shared what we were afraid of, what was weighing heavily on our souls, on our hearts. And it just opened us to each other in the most beautiful way. Because when you share vulnerability from a place of, I don't need to be fixed, I just need you to know who I am here, that creates safety. It's truly miraculous. And that itself is a skill because we're not used to in our world sharing honestly about what's going on. So when the ecosystem of relationships, when your relationships aren't changing externally, the question is never, how do I fix this between us? I mean, that's a part of the question, but there's a deeper question to ask there. The question is, who am I being when I'm alone? What am I believing? What am I feeling? Am I being honest with myself? If you're not being compassionate with yourself, you will not be able to bring true compassion into your relationships. If you don't know how to bring playfulness into your own life on your own, you don't know how to laugh at yourself, do silly things. I did something really silly the other day and it had me laughing out loud so hard. I can't remember what it is now, but that won't appear in your relationships. If you're running an internal thought system of what's wrong with me, there's a guilt or shame. Those are the conditions you're bringing into your relationships. So this was huge for me to realize through my journey. I've had so many times in my life where I'm like, and it was so unconscious because often these things are unconscious at the beginning. It was so unconscious. It's like, oh my God, no one actually loves me here. I am too much. I'm invisible. And this is one that is actually, I'm still working through. I have this belief system, this belief that I am not seen, I'm not recognized, I'm invisible. And part of my practice is to recognize myself. So I do this sometimes in my journal, sometimes in my mirror. I will stand and I will acknowledge myself for what I'm choosing to recognize myself for. And it's now that is being reflected in the external world. I feel recognized more and more. But I'll tell you, I still get this evidence and it still surprises me sometimes. I met someone in the local health food store, and I was with my friend who has lived here for a very long time. And the person in the health food store was like, "Oh, yeah, I know you. I've seen you around before." And my internal experience was like, "Oh," was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's a belief that I'm not recognized." like I am seen and people do notice me. But it was this moment of like really breathing in that truth. Like, here is this evidence. I can show up fully as me. I am recognizing myself in my world when I'm by myself. And now here it is being reflected to me. It's coming in and creating new conditions in my relationships when I meet people I actually don't really know or have never met before. So, and this happened with my brothers as well. I used to have this belief that my brothers didn't care about me at all. They didn't really love me. They're both younger than me. Um, there's 3 years and 5.5, 2.5 and 5.5 years between us, and we're very different. And so I used to think that my brothers didn't really love me. And I would carry that into all of our conversations every time we saw each other. And we would get into arguments, and I would leave feeling really upset and disconnected from them until one day I started to choose because I started noticing, I was like, oh, maybe that's not true. Like, I actually just started widening my perspective and going, maybe that's not actually true that they don't love me. Right. It didn't really, it was like, okay, let's challenge this belief. And I started noticing little things that happened. Like one Christmas, my brother Adrian, he gave me as a gift, and we don't exchange gifts between me and my brothers. We get my parents things and my nephew and stuff, but we tend to just be like, we don't have to get each other anything. But my brother Adrian got me a gift. I had just come back from Mexico, and which had been a big ordeal. And he got me a book by Alan Watts. So all like quotes and sayings by Alan Watts. And he'd written it an inscription in it. And after I opened it and thanked him and gave him a big hug, he looked at me and he said, "You remind me of him, but I'd much rather listen to him than you." And it was the sweetest, most typical compliment from my brother. And in the past, I may have just only held on to the part that said, but I don't want to listen to you talk about it. But what I saw instead was, oh, here's my brother actually telling me that he really values the way that I think, the way that I perceive the world. And a man like Alan Watts resonates with him more than how I talk about things. And we're brother and sister. And so we have lots of baggage around that, right? But it's like as soon as I could bring a different condition, which was curiosity, into our relationships, everything started shifting and changing. So that's what we brought in to the weekend. We brought in conditions of curiosity, compassion, honesty, playfulness, and they existed inside self and they existed in our group. And that meant that the group was this living, breathing ecosystem that created freedom. There was freedom in us to be ourselves, where everything flowed. And this was the state of a very healthy ecosystem when each species is filling themselves up. And then there is an exchange between that species and the other species in the ecosystem. It all just works together. It's hierarchy. And so this is what we did. And this is what the work is in relationships. It's not about what's fixing what's broken because there's nothing actually broken. There are just conditions that are influencing how your relationships are then moving and working together. And so when we build the conditions inside, when you can create those conditions inside of you, that creates a massive ripple effect in the world, in your relationships with strangers that you meet on the street, in the grocery store, wherever you might be. So, your invitation this week is just notice. Notice for yourself, what conditions am I bringing into my relationships? How am I showing up with myself when I am alone? Can I change those conditions within myself with genuine curiosity? Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about this episode, the link to my Speak Pipe is in the show notes. You can leave me a voice message and I will compile answers, listener answers, and answer them in a future episode. Have the most beautiful day.